Welcome back to the Sports Complex here on a Monday afternoon. I'm your host, Patrick Davis. On the show today, we're going to get into the Cowboys and their preseason opener, some sound from Mike McCarthy, and, of course, some big news happening in Arlington, in Dallas. Several stories breaking about the Dallas Cowboys today. We're also going to get into a little bit of James Harden and Justin Verlander, and our big fat poll of the day. Pete Sampson joined E and Rod B this morning to talk about Notre Dame, number 15 on the Horns countdown to college football. We'll get into your text. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line if you want to join the conversation. We're also going to get some notes there from Sark. He is talking to the media, I believe, right now. He'll be talking to them, so we'll try to get into that. Talk about the scrimmage that happened this weekend and a little bit of recruiting update. And we are out early today for the Rangers. Pregame starting at 6:30, so we'll be off for that. But we got a whole lot to get to today, so we appreciate you joining us. Join us on the Specs text line, 512-337-3776. It's how you can join the conversation there. And I want to give a big thanks to everyone who I saw out last night at Obi Fest. I was out there all day at the Rail House. It was a real fun time. Got to meet some different listeners of the show, some friends that I hadn't seen in a long time that came out to and celebrate the life of MC Overlord. Wonderful time, though. Shout out to Homers up in Pflugerville, I believe is where he said Homers was at, but it was nice to meet him, as well as some other listeners of the show. Tomar Williams came out and did a great job. All the bands. It was just so much fun to be out there and have a great time yesterday. You can tell my voice is a little different because I may have been talking for about 8 hours straight yesterday in the 100-degree heat outside, watching these shows and having a good time. But it's voice like 90%, really 90% today, so I think we'll be fun for the show. Let's get into it, though. Cowboys open their preseason opener against the Jaguars on Saturday. Have a decent game. You get an early interception against Trevor Lawrence, who we weren't sure if Trevor Lawrence was going to play or not. He comes in, is able to get him, an interception early. They start to go through. Look okay. They look okay. The Deuce Vaughn shows out in that game. DeMarvion Overshawn shows out in that game. Some good rookies. Mazi Smith, not as much. Looked like he was a little slow on the snap, but that may be a little bit of time missed because of his knee pain. I think he'll be fine. It is just going to be a little bit more. It looks like more of a learning curve for him to get up to speed. And he didn't look bad. He just didn't look like the guy you want in that first-round pick. So, hopefully he'll get there and get a little bit more pressure from him in the coming days. But the big news today is not just the scrimmage or the preseason game, which we'll get into a little bit more, and I got some sound from Mike McCarthy. But the big news for the Dallas Cowboys is that Zach Martin and the Cowboys have finally reached an agreement. He's basically going to get about $8 million more on his contract, 4 more in the following 2 years each, and then he's also, those next 2 years are fully guaranteed now. So Zach Martin will be coming back to this O-line, which did look like it needed to have a Zach Martin. The depth is not necessarily fully there for this Cowboys O-line. They did okay, but nothing that you would think this is we're ready to go. We're ready to go week one. I feel comfortable putting Dak Prescott out there with this O-line. So I think it's very good. You get Zach Martin back. Biotish is playing back now. So if you're able to get your guys back and healthy, that O-line then doesn't become a factor where it looked like earlier in this preseason that O-line could have been a huge factor. Mike McCarthy did talk about the offensive line depth after the game on Saturday.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a concern. I mean, just because when you look at the way you practice, I mean, the goal is and concerns not because I don't want this going down that road. It's a focus would be a better, so scratch that. It's a focus, because you always would like to get to a point in camp where we have your five guys that you're going to try to get connected and get into a rhythm and so forth. We're obviously not at that point. We have some veterans, we have some moving parts. So on the flip side of that, it does create a lot of opportunity for our young players. And just talking with Josh Ball before I come in here, I'm excited to see what he, how his game went. He asked me how he did. I said, well, I got this new gig. I'm kind of sorry I didn't get to watch it tonight, but this is good for us. I mean, I think this will pay dividends in the long run. But at some point, you do want to get into that routine of getting 5 guys working together.
So that's him. The first part of that is that he's okay with the O-line, but it's that Mike McCarthy thing where he starts to tell the truth and be like, "Oh, we're not really we were not there, we're not there," and then he goes, "Oh, no, but actually we're fine, don't worry about it." I think they did just well enough for Zach Martin to get paid today. That's how well that O-line and the depth there looked of the Jerry Jones. Well, I guess maybe we'd have to deal with it if he got hurt. Not the case. Jerry Jones realized let's finish up this holdout. We need him ready week 1 because we need this running game to look better than it did. And Deuce Vaughn looked good. And I get Tony Pollard wasn't there, but the running game in its whole, Malik Davis did not look good really at all in the running game. He was okay receiving, but not great in there. Rico Dowdle looked okay. Deuce Vaughn looked good. But the big part of that for me, when I was listening to this whole press conference, the thing that kind of stuck out to me on this whole press conference for Mike McCarthy is that Mike McCarthy is acting as if taking over play calling wasn't his idea, really. It seems as if he got demoted to play caller. And I know that sounds weird, but he doesn't sound like a head coach. He does nothing about this press conference sounds like a head coach. Everything they keep asking, he goes, "Oh, I couldn't really watch that because, new thing I got to do. I got to call plays." And I couldn't see that because, I got a new thing I got to do. We got to call plays. And you're like, well, dude, if you can't do both, that's a problem. So he goes on the press conference to talk about calling plays. Here's Mike McCarthy talking about calling plays where he says, hey, man, I'll get back and we'll get the hang of it. And the reporter, when he asked the question, basically asked him, is calling plays like riding a bike? Here's Mike McCarthy's answer.
Well, I would say a lot of it's like riding a bike because, it was, it's natural. I think just like anything in this game, your preparation really ties to your performance. So it was fun to prepare for a game again. But preseason games are a bit different. You're so focused on your players and your guys, and just keeping them in friendly concepts. Especially with the focus of of our young guys. But yeah, it wasn't clean. I got a number of things that we'll talk about as a staff, and and we'll be better for it because this was our first time operating. Personally, I'm glad I had I have a number of coaches that worked with me before. I made it, and I had an old call come out of my mouth that's not in the offense, so that was fun. But but we corrected that immediately. But truck right was old strong right, so strong right come flying out of there. But it actually was a big play too, so you can take that for what it's worth. But no, it was good to get back into it. But I think Brian and his staff are doing a great job. If anything, we probably over communicated, which is a good thing. So and we'll be better next week.
There it is. We'll be better next week, and he better be, because as I said, this whole press conference sounds as if he's really struggling trying to do 2 things at once. Really struggling to figure out how to be a play caller and do another thing. And to be a head coach in the NFL, if you can't be a leader and get this team ready to go, who's going to do that for you? Is Dak Prescott have to lead this team? Is Dak Prescott the de facto head coach because he's going to be the one on the sideline talking to players because he's not freaked out? He says later in this press conference he couldn't really watch the defense because he was worried about play callings for the offense. He says that he couldn't watch the players that he was doing, even though they're playing offense that he's calling. He couldn't really watch them because he has to call plays. And I get you want to be focused, you want to make the right play calls. But can you be a head coach if you can't manage anything else but doing the bare minimum of calling plays? If you can't do anything else, you're not a head coach anymore. You're an offensive coordinator. That's what you are. And so is this really just kind of a sideways where he doesn't want the pressure? And I know he'll say in this, we'll play a clip, and he'll say, blame it on me. But you can be like, I'll just take the blame. But are you just a glorified offensive coordinator at this point with Mike McCarthy? And if that's the case, I think there's probably better play callers out there. We'll see. I mean, one of the interesting things we saw is we know that he made the big claim that they were going to run the ball more. And they didn't at all in the preseason. Now it's preseason again, so they're trying to get different things done. But you figure you want to work the O-line. You figure you want to work these running backs in preseason because you don't care about Cooper Rush or Will Grier. Like, that's great. They can play, but it doesn't matter. They're not starting over Dak. We know who the starting quarterback is. You want to get some of those wide receivers some reps, sure, but you were trying to spread the ball around. It wasn't like you were really working Tolbert. You weren't playing Gallup. You're not playing Cooks. You're not playing Rodgers. I get, okay, you want to throw it to the tight end. You want to throw it to Ferguson some. You want to see how the tight ends work. But to only carry the ball 22 times and throw the ball 43 doesn't seem like what you would do in this preseason game, and it doesn't seem like what he said. The interesting part is he did have 11 targets to running backs, so he did throw the ball. So if we take the targets to running backs, and I know they're check downs, they're not all call plays for running backs, but if we take the 11 targets, then it makes it a little bit closer, where it's 33 running back plays to 32 plays thrown to wide receivers or tight ends. So it does get a little bit closer if we throw in, okay, he's going to start throwing, short passes. I can get all this. I don't think his play calling was bad, but I don't get how it just doesn't seem like he is going to be able to handle the responsibilities of being a head coach in the NFL and being the play caller. We know he's saying that Brian Schottenheimer is going to help him out a ton, and they're going to try and work together. It seems like he kind of wanted to hire Schottenheimer, and Jerry Jones ixnayed that, and so they said, okay, well, you got to call the plays. And I just don't like the attitude of, I got another job I got to do. It's just hard for me. I just don't like that attitude from a guy who's supposed to be leading this team. You need to show that you can handle it and that this team is ready to go and do things. Not, hey, man, even the coach doesn't know what he's doing. And then he talks later in this press conference. They're asking him, okay, well, if you seem kind of overwhelmed right now because you're calling plays and you can't watch the defense at all, you can't watch your own players that you're calling plays for to see how they're doing. You can't watch any of that stuff. You're just focused on play calling. Then how are you going to manage the clock? And how do you have game management? And he basically said, well, we hired some people to do analytics to do that for me. Here's Mike McCarthy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have we're kind of been able to go back, with our new analytics team that we've hired recently. We've been able to go back to what I refer to as a 2-man format that I've used in the past. So, this was the first night and we had some good conversations. We had had one conversation there at the 2:08 mark there in the fourth quarter on when to burn that last time out, and just we're able to operate and make those decisions and in live time. So about threshold decisions. So that was good work for us.
So you don't have like one coach kind of in charge of maybe.
Yeah. I have two individuals that are primarily in charge of game management. But if you don't like it, just yell at me. That's how we do it. So.
You ended on the joke. Just yell at me. I'm not worried about yelling at you because I don't think you're going to have this job at the end of the year because you don't sound like a head coach in the NFL. You're running the biggest franchise. They just did the rankings of how much teams are worth. You're running the biggest franchise in America, and that's your leader? That's the guy who's leading you? Is the guy who goes, yeah, no, I'm calling plays. I'm a glorified offensive coordinator, and they had to hire some dudes because I'm so bad at game management that they had to hire some analytics guys to be like, hey, Mike, you should call timeout now, buddy. That's what they had. We had to hire some guys for that. If you were going to go this route, then just make the move. Maybe you don't want to pay. I don't know. It just seems as if Jerry Jones went in, had some conversation. They said, hey, whatever we're doing isn't working. We got to make some changes. And I'd really like to make Dan Quinn head coach and then, kind of demote you. But I can't demote you because you'll leave, and I don't want to give up on the Mike McCarthy experiment. So I'm gonna keep you, but I need you to call the plays. You have to be the play caller. And because I don't trust you to then have game management, because you couldn't handle game management well when that was your only job. When you were just trying to lead this team and you weren't play calling, you couldn't even really handle all of that as well as you needed to at points. So now I'm going to hire some other guys and hire an analytics guys to basically tell us the best idea of when we go for it on fourth down, if we should kick the field goal. All those kind of decisions will go down to more analytical because I just don't trust you. So I'm going to trust you to call plays, but that's it. And it's just not – there's nothing about Mike McCarthy in this press conference. I get it's a preseason game, and maybe he will get better. And by week 3, week 4, and once we get to the regular season, maybe he'll be like, oh, no, now I got it down. We're hitting it, and we're scoring a bunch of points, and everything looks good. Maybe. Or maybe We get to week 4, and they lose a game because he can't get this team pumped up, and he can't call the timeout, and there's no sense of urgency because you don't hear any sense of urgency in his voice. And now maybe that's because it is preseason, he doesn't care yet. But it just doesn't sound like a guy who is a head coach. It sounds like an offensive coordinator who had to do press conference. That's what it sounds like to me. He could not, and the amount of times, I can't cut all the times up in this press conference that he basically said, I couldn't watch that because I was play calling. And he always said it in kind of a smarmy, well, I have this new job. Like he didn't want to do it, but kind of got stuck with it. You know when they fire somebody at the office and then they're like, hey, by the way, that's your job now? That's what it feels like he feels happened, where he was fine not really working that hard as a head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and they put a bunch more on his plate by making him the play caller. That's what it sounds like. I don't think that's fully the case. I think Mike McCarthy is talented enough. I don't think Jerry Jones look, I will give Jerry Jones more credit than a lot of people, that I don't think he's that stupid that he hired a guy who doesn't know anything about football. So I think Mike McCarthy has some ability. But if I'm saying I need to get my team ready to go, I need to fight for it, I'm not worried about the defense because we know what Dan Quinn can do. But that offense, man, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be something special this year. And they have the talent, they have the people. You want to be game manager, you want to be able to let the defense carry the load. But you have to kind of connect all the dots in that case. And if Mike McCarthy can't even watch his own O-lineman, if Mike McCarthy can't watch the defense, then how can he manage a game properly to know, hey, man, we need to kind of hurry this up and we'll trust our defense on this one and we need to go down and get some points because we got to manage the clock? Or is he just going to always call it a slower game? I don't have any faith in this. Every time, I just don't have any faith in what he says. And maybe if I just don't listen to press conferences and only watch games, it may be better. But, man, that dude does not seem like he would be someone. And, look, Bill Belichick doesn't either. Bill Belichick gives the worst press conferences in the world. So, and we know he's won plenty of rings. Now, granted, he won them with Tom Brady, and Mike McCarthy won his with Aaron Rodgers. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's just, if you don't have that quarterback, I can't really do much. And I love Dak, but he's not that quarterback, clearly. He's not, a Hall of Famer. So if we have that, I don't know if Mike McCarthy finishes the season as the Cowboys head coach. I feel like there's a decent enough chance that Brian Schottenheimer is calling plays with head coach Dan Quinn by midseason. I don't think that's crazy of a scenario, that the offense putters out, and if he's a glorified offensive coordinator and he can't get the team ready, and if you have problems of game management, it may be time. It just doesn't sound like he's ready to be the play caller. Everything I couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle it. Who can handle it? Who's coming back? Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott signs a deal with the New England Patriots. He's all ready to go, tweeting about it today, taking back his college number 15. The deal to go to the Patriots, it's basically a $3 million base salary, another $1 million as a signing bonus, and I think he can make another $2 million in incentives. So if he continues to play well and he puts up big numbers, and he's probably going to be a short yardage and red zone back. That's what you figure he'll be in a lot, and also pass pro, because we know he's really good at pass protecting. But this is it's an interesting signing. He got more money than I really thought he would, so congratulations to Zeke for being able to get up to $6 million on a deal at 28 years old. And we know very well, 28 years old, not very old. Very old for a running back, but not very old. When I see the people commenting across Twitter and across the sports world and their ideas of Zeke, you can tell who watched the Cowboys the last 2 seasons and who looked at the box scores. So it was I don't know. Ramondre Stevenson is going to be the main back in New England. Congrats to Zeke for getting a contract. I think if you're a Cowboys fan, this is a wonderful news for you. because it means Zeke Elliott is not coming back. Jerry Jones can no longer go back and pull that because I think he was going to. That was something, if we saw what happened, Rico Dowdle did not play well at all in that game. So that probably not is going to happen. He's probably not going to make the active roster. Malik Davis played a little bit better, but I don't know if you feel good about any of those guys. You've got to feel good about Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn looked really good in that game. He looks electric. He's going to be a change of pace, but is Tony Pollard the pace that you change? I don't know. I would love for the Cowboys to have I want to get into a different subject real quick because we're going to get into Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day, and you can join the conversation. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line here. But I have a couple of stories real quick, and that'll lead us into our Big Fat Poll of the day. And the story came out today about James Harden. He was doing a tour for Adidas, I believe, in China. And this is what James Harden had to say today when I guess he was asked about Daryl Morey.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
Yeah, that seems pretty straightforward. That's a new one in the playbook of James Harden. James Harden, who didn't get a max deal in Oklahoma City so he can play, and they trade him to the Rockets, gets upset that he's not got the players to win, and so they trade for, he gets Chris Paul in there, and then that's not working. He gets Russell Westbrook in there, and that doesn't end up working, and he keeps trying to make trades and keeps trying to, going. And Daryl Morey is there, and Daryl Morey is saying, no, man, I'm looking out for you. I'm looking out for you, James. And then finally James Harden realizes it just ain't going to happen in Houston. So you know what? I hear that there's a super team building up in Brooklyn. They want me there. So you know what? Get me out of here. Go to Brooklyn. And he fights his way out, shows up to camp overweight, just basically tries to tell them, hey, man, if you keep me here, you're going to deal with someone who is in a very bad mood every single day. They trade him. He goes to Brooklyn, starts to play better. Can't really stay on the field. We know the Brooklyn Nets experiment was terrible. They couldn't stay on the court together. James Harden doesn't really like Kevin Durant a ton, and he doesn't like Kyrie Irving at all. So he wasn't happy there. So he says, you know what? I don't like being here either. You know what? Get me out of here. Get me out of here. And he works over, and Daryl Morey goes, hey, you know what, buddy? Let's work it. Let's screw the Nets. Let's screw the Nets, and we'll work a trade, and we'll get you over here, and it'll be great. And Daryl Morey does this because Daryl Morey is known as someone who can make a lot of really good deals. He's known as that guy. But the problem with Daryl Morey is a video game GM. He's really good at getting good players. He's good at signing guys. He works the cap well. He does all of those things. But one thing he has no clue about, or if he does, he doesn't care, is he does not care about personalities and trying to build a winning culture and winning team. Because all he does is just put pieces in together and go win me a title. And when they inevitably don't like each other, don't work well together, have a coach who can't lead them, it all falls apart. And this happens over and over again on Daryl Morey teams. And then he just shuffles the deck again and puts more guys that don't like each other and don't want to play together. And there's no one to lead them, to get them together. We just saw Tony Parker and Popovich and Becky Hammond and Pau Gasol and Dwayne Wade. They all go in the Hall of Fame. They all kind of say the same thing. It's like, hey, man, you kind of have to have this culture and you have to have this, bond with your teammates. You have to have that. Dirk Nowitzki, you have to have that bond. And there's none of that. Daryl Morey doesn't care about the bond. So it ends up that James Harden now is pissed off. Daryl Morey says, I don't care. You're still coming back to Philadelphia. So we're going to see how that works. If I imagine that James Harden is about to start eating as soon as Daryl Morey said he's still going to be there, and he's not going to stop eating for a while. So we get that news today, that James Harden just comes out straight out and says Daryl Morey is a liar, which either means that there was tampering and collusion, which there always is, but whether there was that and they'd had an under the table deal for, hey, man, if you take less this year, we'll give you a max next year, and Daryl Morey just lied to his face when he did it. So either there's that, or he felt he was promised something, and he never was, and so he's pissed off about that. Whatever the case, it probably wasn't really technically legal by the rules, but I don't think, as long as Philadelphia and Daryl Morey say, we never told him that. He doesn't have anything in writing, so they can't do anything. But it's a bad situation. It's hilarious to me because I'm not a James Harden fan. I'm not a Daryl Morey fan, so it's pretty funny to me, actually. But that situation's happened. Justin Verlander puts out a statement today because the rumors came out after his trade back to the Astros that he might have been somebody in a locker room that was not well received in New York. A statement from Justin Verlander. I want to say that I have nothing but respect for the Mets organization. I enjoyed connecting with all of my teammates this season, new and old. It truly was a wonderful group of people. That being said, we all know the success of a team is made up of more than just the players on the field. Everyone's input is valuable. I'm sorry to hear that a staff member took offense to a constructive criticism on how we can improve. Wishing nothing but the best to the Mets moving forward. Basically saying, grow up, get some tougher skin. I was trying to help you learn something, and you didn't want to listen. You think you know what you're doing. But this is why the Mets cannot win, even though they spend all that money, because it's the same thing. You just put whoever on the team. You don't have people in the staff who have built a relationship, and there's no set culture there. It's the same thing that happens in L.A. with the Angels. You can have talent, but until you start building something of, hey, through the staff, it's why the Astros went and got Dusty Baker. Because you go get a guy who says, okay, I can put a culture into the locker room that will then help everyone be better. It's why the Rangers get Bruce Bochy. Because, man, what is the difference between last year and this year? Was you had a coach who didn't really want to take the blame for the Rangers, but at the same point, you brought in a leader to that team, and he can make his staff, if you lead by example, your staff can follow, and you can have a better culture on your team. So Justin Verlander gets called a diva. James Harden gets called a diva. That leads us to Patrick's Big Fat Poll today.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
Poll of the day today. I need your input because I don't even have any names on here. I know he just gave you some examples of James Harden and Justin Verlander who've been called divas today. But the question today, the poll of the day, we will put it up on social media later today. Who is the biggest diva in sports today? Who do you hate? Who do you think is a locker room cancer? Who is the biggest diva that will ruin a team, can't stand them? Tell me on the Specs text line, 512-337-3776. Let me know who the biggest diva in sports is today. We'll read those off a little bit later. James Harden seems like he might be on that list at this point. I don't think Justin Verlander is there. Maybe I'm biased because I'm an Astros fan, but I don't think Justin Verlander is a diva. I think he's done well. He was always respected in Detroit. He was respected in Houston. And one place he goes that seems to have massive problems from top to bottom, and the Mets, they don't like him. That may be it's not me, it's you. But tell me, who is the biggest diva in sports today? Specs text line, 512-337-3776. We come back. We're going to play an interview that they had earlier today. Ian Roby talked to Pete Sampson about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, number 15 on the Horn Top 20 Countdown, getting us ready for college football season. Coming up here on the Sports Complex on the Horn. back on the sports complex here on the Horn. It's I spent all of yesterday, like 8 or 9 hours outside at a show, at a concert. It was very hot, very sweaty all day. And I believe so. This theme of this week for our musical theme is gonna be. Man, I wish it would rain. We're gonna do some rain songs. We're gonna try and do a rain dance every day here on the sports complex for the rest of the week, and try and get us a little bit of rain, maybe a cold front to blow, and in a real one. I know it's technically a cold front if it drops 5 degrees, and it's instead of 107, it's 102. I get that's technically a cold front. I want a real one. I want to get below 100 as our high one day, but I want some rain. So we're gonna be playing rain songs all week, trying to do a rain dance here on the sports complex. Keep those texts coming in. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. Getting some good answers for our big fat poll of the day. Who is the biggest diva in sports today? Keep those coming in. 512-337-3776. Earlier today on the E and Rod B morning show, 6 to 11 a.m. right here on the Horn, Aaron Hogan had on the phone Pete Sampson from The Athletic, covers Notre Dame, has covered him from a long time. They're number 15 on our Horn Top 20 countdown, getting us ready for college football. And here's the interview this morning with Pete Sampson, getting us caught up on what's happening in Notre Dame. One of the more interesting teams to watch with all the conference realignment stuff. They want to stay independent. Will they be able to? That is the question. And if you're good, you can. The worse you get, the harder it is. Marcus Freeman, there's a lot of questions going into Notre Dame. Here's the interview from this morning with Pete Sampson on E and Rod B.
Notre Dame in at number 15 and coming off a 9-5 season. And, as Rod B said on the way out, the emergence and the transfer of one Sam Hartman to help rev up the offense for Marcus Freeman in year 2. And what will it be? And we'll find out here coming up, get an insider's preview of what Notre Dame is all about. We'll also run through their schedule and what they're going to be at number 15. With that in mind, can we go to the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline? He is covering the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and has for a long time. He's at theathletic.com. Our friend Pete Sampson to talk some Notre Dame football. Pete, good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. Your second full year under Marcus Freeman. Can I start with last year's 9-5 campaign and where things stand with the fans? How are they feeling about Marcus Freeman at the helm of the Irish program?
I'd say cautiously optimistic. And I think, you get a lot of questions like, well, how much better is Freeman going to be in year 2 than year 1? And I get it. It's all important for a first-year head coach to no longer be a first-year head coach. But, the biggest reason Marcus Freeman is going to be better in year 2 than year 1 is his quarterback is a lot better. So I think that's really driving so much of the optimism around Notre Dame right now. It's maybe less about the head coach than it was a year ago and so much more about the quarterback.
In the era of the transfer portal, a player that's played a lot of college football at the high level of the ACC there at Wake Forest, Sam Hartman, is now in control. How great of an upgrade is that for the Notre Dame offense, Pete?
It's massive because it lets Notre Dame's offense operate in a sort of modern mode where the quarterback can make plays. He can be the reason you win. It's not Notre Dame's been sort of stuck in this game manager mode for a long time, and they've had some good game managers. But the last time they had a quarterback that could go out and just win you a game, whether it be Brady Quinn or Jimmy Clausen, it's been a long time. So I think that's the best case scenario with Hartman. And I'm not saying that he needs to go out there and just be a gunslinger and throw 40 touchdowns and look like Joe Burrow 2019, but he should be able to let Notre Dame go into games against USC or Ohio State and not feel inferior at the quarterback position, which is really where Notre Dame was last season.
Also, they're typically really good up front, and offensive line has been just an absolute bell cow of that program. Where does that stand, and what are the main weapons on the rest of the offense for Marcus Freeman?
Their tackles are elite. Joe Alt will be a first-team All-American. Blake Fisher probably, maybe a fringe All-American, but certainly maybe a day 2 NFL guy at worst. And then, but the offensive skill positions, they're good at running back with Audric Estime. Their tight end should be solid. There's no Michael Mayer. The receivers, I think, is a big concern for Notre Dame right now. And it's from your area, Jaden Greathouse, who played down at Westlake, they're relying on him to come in and do something right away as a true freshman. And that's typically you don't college football playoff contenders are not relying on true freshmen across the board, but at receiver, they're really going to need a surprise to, a young player to take a huge step forward, and that's going to leave you with some inconsistencies along the way. But they need somebody like a Greathouse, who seems incredibly mature from talking to him up here. And he played a sophisticated offense down there. That's the kind of player they need to really have a breakout freshman season.
It's interesting because we covered Jordan back in the day, obviously, and one of the at Westlake, which is a power program in the state of Texas. He was a starter as a freshman here for Westlake, so he was on the team as a freshman, which is rare at a program like that. But man, if anybody can do it, it'd be Jaden Greathouse, and just an all-around ball player without a doubt. And Braylon James, a kid from this area who was recruited there. And no doubt Marcus Freeman has made the state of Texas and even Central Texas a priority with he and his coaching staff on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, their receivers coach, Chancey Stuckey, who was at Baylor, he knew all the receivers in Texas. So his first year, KK Smith is another guy. They got 4 receivers last year. 3 of them were from Texas. Greathouse by far the most sort of out of the box, ready to go. Braylon James, I think the staff sees as more of a developmental prospect, like very athletic and talented, but just super raw. Greathouse, you would have a hard time finding guys playing at a higher level of football than what they do at Westlake, or Kate Klubnik's quarterback. And that's, they expect that to translate. I think he had 11 catches in the spring game.
Wow.
And he's you talk to him and you feel like you're talking to someone who's 28 years old, not 18. And I think that it sort of comes across in the way he plays when you watch him at some of these open practices that I've been able to go to.
Awesome. Pete Sampson with theathletic.com covering Notre Dame, number 15 in our countdown. On the defensive side, up front, Isaiah Foskey and one of the 3 veterans that's moving on. So you got to replace some guys there. And really wasn't a great red zone defense for Notre Dame last year. How do they improve that side? And that's Marcus Freeman's specialty. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the defensive side?
Yeah, at corner, it's probably as good a group of corners as Notre Dame has had 10 years at least. And that's, they have had some good corners along the way. But I think in terms of depth and then frontline guys, Ben Morrison was a freshman All-American last year. I think their linebackers will be very good. They're very old. It's basically grad students across the board there. Defensive end, that is where my big concern is. And it's not like they don't have options there, but there's nobody who really has stepped up as like a reliable player. And if you don't have a strong pass rush from the edge, then how good your corners are, like nobody's going to be able to guard for 6-8 seconds a time if you can't get pressure. So that's the big question mark of the defense. If they can get moderate pressure from the defensive end spot, I think this should be a good defense. If they can have like sort of a surprise story, whether it be Jordan Botello, who's a senior from Hawaii, who has played a little bit, or Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who was a grad transfer from Ohio State. If they can get a surprise there, then the defense has a chance to maybe be better than what people think. But corner, linebacker, those really should be big strengths for this group.
Strengths for the team. It's Pete Sampson talking Notre Dame, number 15 in our countdown, on the way to number 1. Offense now has a leader in Sam Hartman. Defense, obviously has some guys to replace up front, but really strong behind that. What about the schedule? Obviously, it's always a tough schedule, nationwide schedule for Notre Dame, Pete. And obviously, you guys are playing a week from Saturday. You guys are in Ireland, Dublin, to play Navy. So you guys are way ahead of the curve on that at South Bend. Talk about the trip to that. Then you come back, play Tennessee State ahead of a trip to NC State. There's also the big one with Ohio State, late September. USC at Notre Dame Stadium in the middle of October, and then a trip to Clemson on the schedule in November early on. It's daunting. It's as good. Notre Dame's always going to play a tough schedule.
Yeah, it's a very difficult schedule because you've got the 3 games at the top, and if you're in the SEC, you're going to play 3 teams, probably the equivalent of Ohio State, USC, and Clemson. But I really feel like the draw they got from the ACC is kind of sneaky difficult. Like NC State, Duke were very good last year. Pittsburgh plays them tough. Louisville with Jeff Brom, what are you going to see there? Who knows? But I think that NC State game, it's Notre Dame's 3rd game. I think it's week 2 of the actual the college football season. They play at noon, Carter Finley Stadium in Raleigh. Like, NC State is good enough to beat Notre Dame if Notre Dame shows up with like a C+ performance, and that is one of the growth areas where I think Marcus Freeman really needs to show something in year 2. Is like, how do you get the team to be more consistent and more sort of level-headed when they play, so you don't run into a Marshall or a Stanford like last season where it's just a complete flat tire. So if they can get NC State, then they'll be undefeated when Ohio State comes here. It'll be a top 10 matchup. But you got to get over that first hurdle of NC State before you can start looking ahead to like, okay, these are the big 3 games of Ohio State, USC, and Clemson. 2 of them are at home. So you figure, there's a chance to make some noise there against some legit playoff and national title contending type teams.
No question. USC at number 4 in the preseason, Ohio State 5, Clemson 9, and then Pittsburgh's in there too, a good team out of the ACC. Stanford at the end of the year. Hey, Pete, the ACC and its potential growth. Obviously, your thoughts, just as a college football fan, on the collapse of the Pac-12 and the further growth of the Big Ten and the Big 12. Where does this stand? Obviously, Notre Dame reportedly has been a proponent of adding Cal and Stanford to the ACC. That got voted down over the weekend. Where does this stand in your perspective from Notre Dame, and just your general opinions on what's going on?
I mean, Notre Dame would love it if the ACC would add those teams, not just from the academic component, but just like the ACC has been, I think, pretty good for Notre Dame. But Notre Dame really likes to sort of be on both coasts as much as possible. Well, if you can have a conference that's on both coasts, that allows you the flexibility that the ACC does, that would be a big win for Notre Dame. So it's, what happened to the Pac-12 is a shame as a college football fan. Somebody grew up on like the Big Ten, Pac-10 Rose Bowls when I was a kid. Like, that's tough to sort of see that fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of making the best of it, what's good for Notre Dame isn't necessarily good for the ACC. I understand why the ACC's position is what it is, but I'd be interested to see if Notre Dame would be willing to give a little to the ACC to get Stanford and Cal, and I'm doubtful that they would, maybe take on a 5th ACC game or make some other concessions. But I understand why it makes sense to Notre Dame. But I also understand why it doesn't make sense to the ACC at large.
Yeah, it's interesting. And reportedly that vote was 1 vote shy. They need 12 of the 15. Notre Dame is on board, but 4 votes against, including both Carolina schools. Also, Florida State and Clemson voted against it for whatever the reasons. And there was some reporting, I think Sarah Auerbach at theathletic.com, that even at those universities, at some schools, the AD and the president are in disagreement, right? The leadership at individual schools are not sure what they want to do. Any prediction on how this will play out?
I have a hard time seeing Stanford and Cal not getting picked up by somebody.
Right.
To me, I feel like Cal and Stanford, maybe they'll end up in the ACC, but on the same terms as like Oregon and Washington going to the Big Ten, where you're sort of like also in there and getting like a partial share of revenue to start, and then maybe you can become a full member later. But it just, especially with Stanford, their sports programs, it doesn't make any sense for them to be unattached entirely. I mean, I think the best case scenario is the Big Ten is like, we're just going to have an entire 6-team West Coast block. But I understand why the money doesn't make sense for either of those leagues to pick them up, and the travel's difficult as well. But college football is a mess, man. I'm excited that the games are about to start. We can talk about those, but the offseason, it's been yet another rough offseason for a sport that just no one feels like they're really in charge.
He is Pete Sampson, Notre Dame beat writer for theathletic.com. Are you headed to Dublin, I'm sure?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Got an overnight flight 2 weeks from tomorrow, which is kind of hard to get my head around. But yeah, I'll be flying over there for the short weekend. But it's gonna be fun to sort of see how Marcus Freeman year 2 and Sam Hartman looks from Aviva Stadium in Dublin against Navy. All
right, well, enjoy that. Safe travels, and then we'll check in again as the season goes. There's some heavyweight matchups in there that we would love to get into a deep dive conversation on. Thank you, Pete.
Absolutely, anytime. Thanks.
Find Pete Sampson on Twitter, and all of his work at theathletic.com. On Twitter, it's at Pete Sampson _. And yeah, man, how about that game? Navy and Notre Dame in Dublin, Ireland.
There you go. Pete Sampson joining Ian Rod B this morning, talking about number 15 on the Horn Top 20 Countdown, getting us ready for college football season. We'll come back. We will read some of your answers for the Big Fat Poll of the day, the biggest diva in sports today. Send us in 512-337-3776. Who is the biggest diva in sports today? 512-337-3776. Coming back here on the Sports Complex on the Horn. Back in the Sports Complex here on the Horn. We've been asking you guys all day for our Big Fat Poll of the day. Who is the biggest diva in sports? We know James Harden was called a diva today. We know Justin Verlander was called a diva today. So we wanted to ask you, who do you have as the biggest diva in sports? And let's go through some of your answers here on the Specs text line. You can text in and join the conversation, 512-337-3776. We will have, let's see, first time I've been able to listen to you. Had me at the opening music. If you like the opening music of the show, that is a song by the Heebie-Jeebies called No Doubt. You can look that up. The Heebie-Jeebies, one of the best. Will any of these divas actually be female? There may be. I know a lot of people don't like the U.S. women's soccer team. They may say there's some. I don't know about it, but that's some may say that. We get a Kyler Murray in here. Aaron Rodgers, definitely Aaron Rodgers is going to be one that people talk about. He seems like he's changed his ways in New York. Apparently it was just a Green Bay thing, and he hated the leadership there. But, yeah, I don't know. It seems like Aaron Rodgers maybe is just waiting to explode. Something can go wrong. I know they said there was already that report that there was bad drills, and he was already getting miffed. So who knows? Nick Saban talking about the Texas Collective. Nick Saban is one of the biggest divas. I could kind of see it. I don't know if he's there, but he's definitely had diva moments. Kevin Durant on there, Aaron Rodgers again, Kyrie Irving is listed as well a number of times. A lot of basketball players too. Biggest divas, James Harden there. We all have Kyrie here. It's because Kyrie pop hurt his feelings, and every coach team since then has also. MJ would make Kyrie cry. For that matter, Steve Kerr would also, and Rodman would have him fetching beers while calling him things I can't say on the radio. And waiting to see Aaron Rodgers lose his S and blame his team. That's one, because you know what's going to happen in the New York spotlights. Another Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be on our list. Kyler Murray might be on there. Kyler Cryer Murray is put on there. And LeBron, of course, people are going to put LeBron as the biggest diva. He may be. He is. He does like to make some noise. Kyler freaking Murray again. There we get Tim Anderson and LeBron James. A lot of Kyler. So Kyler wants to be on this list. We want to have Aaron Rodgers. James Harden may be on this list. He is asking for another trade. And of course, all the trades now are all asked for in the sense of, you know what? We just have to make the trade. I want to go to one team. I want you to give up nothing to get rid of me. If you guys could just take a second round pick and trade me to this team so I could win a championship, that would be great. I know I'm not doing it. I signed a contract and I opted into the contract. I still don't get why James Harden opted into this contract. I mean, I do get it, was he wasn't going to get the same money on the open market, but at the same part, you just can't opt in and then be mad that you're there. Like, you had the choice. You could have walked away and you chose not to. It seems like I get the financials of it, that a bunch of teams didn't have money. They probably could have made some. They could have traded off somebody else and tried to open up some cap. Would have had to give up a draft pick. Probably would have been easier for some of these teams. I know you couldn't have gone to the Clippers. That's where you want to go, and they just don't have the money. But you could have even tried to work a sign and trade then with the Philadelphia 76ers, and it would have been easier because you could have said, hey, so I'm going to re-sign with you guys. But if you opt in, it makes it harder to make that sign and trade. Just a ridiculous move with James Harden. But Russell Wilson, a big diva. There's a Megan Rapinoe. I was waiting. I know that people are not a big fan of hers, especially after the loss there in the World Cup. I want to know. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. Who the biggest diva is in sports right now? I feel like we got a couple of them. Kyler Murray seems to be a lot of people. Maybe that's a Texas thing. But Kyler Murray seems to be one. Aaron Rodgers seems to be one. James Harden seems to be one. And so who is going to be the last one on that list? That's what I'm curious. Kaepernick, I don't know. Kaepernick, he's not even in sports today. He's not in the news anymore. So he can't be in sports today. He hasn't played in the league in years. Kyrie Irving may be on that list too. Kyrie Irving is a very good shot to be on that list. I know that he came out this week though, and Mavs fans used to be happy. He said, I'm not going to the Lakers. That's crazy. I'm in Dallas. I'm staying in Dallas. And I mean, he's going to mean that for at least the first 3 weeks of the season. After that, who knows? But, first 3 weeks, he's going to be all on board for that. Tell us what you think. 512-337-3776. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hit hour number 2. It is a shortened show today because of the Texas Rangers. Pre-game will start at 6:30 for the Texas Rangers kicking off a new series. And we're going to get you there at 6:30, but we still got 30 more minutes here on the Sports Complex, here on the Horn, 101.9 AM 1260, on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. you want to see Jonte Cook playing well is another sign that's really good. And, Xavier Worthy sat it out. He practiced today. Sark said he practiced today. Jordan Whittington had an injury but did practice today. Sark said in his media availability. So no major injuries, it seems, coming out of that scrimmage, which we talked about the other day, was Sark saying the physicality had increased. The physicality had increased for Texas, and it, even though he was playing harder, and it's hotter out, and we're trying to go. Even with all of that Texas is having less injury problems because they're playing a little bit looser and a little bit more confidently. And it's a weird way of, if you just try and play the sports and play football the right way, sometimes you can get out of it with less injuries, as opposed to trying to be a little bit safer and, maybe pulling up on a hit, but then you hit awkwardly. It's just nice to see that so far we don't have the injuries. I will knock on wood. Now that I've said it, we will knock on, because it is still a long enough road to get to Texas' first game against Rice in about 19 days, I believe. We're 19 days away from college football, and there's still some more scrimmages coming up. Of course, this scrimmage was basically let's see who's playing all right, let's see who's going, and we will get through. We will get a look at some of our players in a real game time situation. Let those guys kind of get something going. And scrimmage 2 is now where we start to talk about the depth chart. So when we talk about possible wide receivers and getting those, that's going to be next. That'll be the next game, especially with Jordan Whittington playing some more, and with Xavier Worthy, I'm sure, coming back. Maybe that depth chart of the wide receiver room will sort itself out a little bit more. The depth chart of quarterbacks. And if Arch Manning is going to redshirt, if Arch Manning is going to be number 2, where he sits on that as well, that'll start happening more in scrimmage number 2. Looks like we do have breaking news from the NFL world. We'll get to that in just a minute. But some breaking news involving the New York Jets, and one of our a story that's been progressing for a while, but apparently that deal is coming out. We'll check that out in a little bit. I do want to give you a quick recruiting update. First off, today it's coming over. 5-star defensive back Kobe Black has been getting crystal balls to Texas all day today. Another 5-star recruit, Jerry Hamilton from On3, was talking about the Texas recruiting class and how it could be going up after the commitment of Colin Simmons, of how that class is going to start moving up, and how they were ranked 17th in recruiting for 2024 before getting Colin Simmons, how much they could be jumping up if they get Colin Simmons, if they get Kobe Black. There's still a few more. Here's Jerry Hamilton talking about Texas's ranking for recruiting in 2024.
Texas currently has the 17th ranked class in America. Did the addition of Colin Simmons put them on track to finish with the top 10 class? And what do you think is needed for a top 5 finish?
Yeah, I think absolutely it did. I mean, that's kind of the bell cow, that momentum, that was slower to develop versus last year when Arch Manning committed in June, right before Big Visit weekend. Yeah, I mean, you look, Texas has 4 5-stars still on the board. They're right there with, we've mentioned them.
Yeah.
Kobe Black, Brandon Baker, Ryan Wingo. Then you have Dominic McKinley, who's deciding September 1st. The reality, Josh, as we know, is if Texas hits on 2 more of those guys, has 3 5-stars, they're going to be in that 5, 6, 7, 8 range. Then it becomes, how big does your class get? I think Texas has signed 25 guys. So if they hit on 3 5-stars with a 25-man class with what's left, guys like Wardell Mack as possibilities and some others, then they're going to be right there knocking on the door for a 3rd straight top 5 class.
There you go. That's what you want to hear, because it seems like Sark's doing a great job. So you wonder how he's so far down. It's just they're a little bit behind, and I don't even think they're really behind in the grand scheme of things, because they have the guys they're going after. And if they get those guys they're going after, you're never behind. You're right on track. You're right on your pace. Georgia's always going to be able, a national championship dynasty like Georgia is going to be able to recruit. Alabama is another dynasty that is slowing down a little bit, but they're going to be able to recruit just fine. So certain that some of these teams are going to be perennial top 5s. If Texas can get in that top 5, and then they work out that coaching thing, that's really, that's what it always comes back to, is can they work out that coaching thing at the end of the day? Because we know Sark is a great recruiter. Jeff Banks is a great recruiter, and Sharp Choice, and so many of these guys, Chris Jackson, now we're here, all these guys recruiting very well. Players love him. They're recruiting great. Fourth quarter, week 2, third and fourth quarter, second half, but really that fourth quarter in week 2. Are we going to see a different coaching staff, a different Sark play calling? That's what we want to see. Because until I see that, there's still that I have to hold out all my hope, and I can't go full in. I can't be chugging burnt orange Kool-Aid until we get to week 2, fourth quarter. And here's the thing, is if Texas somehow, I don't think they do, if Texas somehow gets out and gets a huge lead against Alabama, and then they're playing the fourth, I just want to see fourth quarter play calling correctly. And even if they're behind in the fourth quarter, can they call a game to be close? Can they call a game to play, to try and come back and manage the game clock and call some plays that, when Alabama figures out your offense, are you going to be able to do those things? That's what I want to see. So I until then, I love it. I'm so happy that we're recruiting like this. And look, as long as Sark keeps recruiting like this, he's going to keep his job because you don't want to lose all these recruits to the transfer portal. So he gets a little bit less of a hot seat. But we know, what do we say in the standard is this year? Double-digit wins, playing for a Big 12 championship. That's where the standard is right now. That's where we need to be. So if he's not there, it's going to be a lot harder to sell, and you're going to see if that transfer portal starts going. If the progress doesn't happen, because right now he's still saying he's on track. He's still saying this is the plan. We are going according to plan. But we need to see that happen. We need to see that happen. Some breaking news out of the NFL. Adam Schefter is reporting, as multiple other people are, free agent running back Dalvin Cook has signed. He is no longer a free agent after getting cut by the Minnesota Vikings. Dalvin Cook's planning to sign a 1-year deal worth up to $8.6 million to the New York Jets. Jets. They get a guy. This was part of the Aaron Rodgers renegotiating his contract and basically taking a massive pay cut. Part of that felt like they were really trying to get another running back. He wanted to get another veteran in there. He wanted to get somebody else, and Dalvin Cook is that guy. Now you bring them in with the young players there. You bring in some experience with an Allen Lazard. You bring in some experience with a Dalvin Cook. And we know the injuries. Like, guys are going to get hurt, so you have to bring in some guys. And Dalvin Cook going to the Jets gives him a little bit more. And let's put it this way. Who else was in the running for Dalvin Cook? Now, we know the Patriots were talking to him. They signed Zeke Elliott earlier today. So they're out. They're out of the Dalvin Cook sweepstakes. We know that. Miami really wanted Dalvin Cook, but I don't think they were getting near that $8.6 million mark. So if we say, hey, man, you kept him off of those other teams, you bring him in, hopefully Breece Hall is going to be a great running back in the NFL for a few years, and I can only say a few years now for running backs. We can no longer say Breece, you say a running back for years to come. No, you go, he's going to be a good running back for like 4 years, and then he's going to have a contract dispute, and he's going to have to hold out when he gets a franchise tag. But like 4 or 5 years, he's going to be really good. Breece Hall will be a good running back. I think playing in a committee, it hurts you financially, but it helps you keep your legs and stay healthier because you don't have to run the ball 30 times a game. So I think Dalvin Cook signing is going to be really good for the New York Jets. Zeke to the Patriots, not so much. I think the Dalvin Cook signing is going to look much better over there. We're going to get you to the Rangers here at 6:30. Note that the Rangers did lose a late game on or a extra innings game on Sunday. Astros lose a game to the Angels, but it means they don't move. Astros are still 2.5 games behind the Angels. Astros playing right now, and they're starting their series against the Marlins. It is still tied 0-0 on that. The Rangers will start at 7 o'clock tonight. Pregame at 6:30 right here on the Horn. Let's talk a little bit about our big fat poll of the day. We'll get to that before we get out of here in just a few minutes. Big fat poll of the day today. We know James Harden came out and dropped this bomb in China. Dropped this bomb today.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
James Harden now saying, I will never be part of an organization with there was a story that there was a picture, like a massive picture of James Harden and Daryl Morey at Daryl Morey's house. Like they're best buddies. But he's saying he wants out of another team. He wanted out of Oklahoma City. He wanted out of Houston. He wanted out of Brooklyn. And now he wants off of Philadelphia. That's 4 teams that he has demanded a trade off of. Oklahoma City didn't really demand a trade. He wanted to get paid. He wasn't going to pay him. He was going to leave in free agency. So they went ahead and traded him. But this is the 4th team that he's asking to be traded from. It's just he definitely seems to fall into the diva category. Justin Verlander, not as much. He put out this tweet earlier today. I want to say that I have nothing but respect for the Mets organization, and I enjoyed connecting with all my teammates this season, new and old. Truly was a wonderful group of people. That being said, we all know the success of a team is made up of more than just the players on the field. Everyone's input is valuable. I'm sorry to hear that a staff member took offense to constructive criticism on how we could improve. Wishing nothing but the best for the Mets moving forward. I love the took offense to a constructive criticism on how we could improve. Which you wonder, is the constructive criticism, hey man, stop sucking. You suck, stop sucking. Is that the constructive criticism? Or was he saying, hey man, maybe, on game days we could change up our schedule a little bit more, and the team bus is leaving at a weird time. Maybe it's something like that. But I guess whatever it was, he gets called a diva. So we asked the question today for Patrick's Big Fat Poll. I don't know, is Kyrie going to be the 4th? Is it James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Aaron Rodgers, and Kyler Murray? Is that what we're going with? I wanted the people to talk, so we'll get it. So hit it in Specs text line. We got a couple minutes left. 512-337-3776. Hit us up on the Specs text line. Let me know what you think of who is the biggest diva in sports. We do another LeBron, a Draymond Green, or Kyrie Irving. Stephon Diggs is an interesting one. Stephon Diggs, who just shows up every once in a while, his name pops up, and he's just unhappy. And he was unhappy with the Bills, but none of us know why. I don't know what that one was about. So Stephon Diggs, I don't know if he's there yet. I feel like he could be, though. He could be. But the biggest diva in sports today, if you have another name for us other than the ones we have named, I think those are the 4. Russell Wilson is a big diva. I don't even know if he's a diva because he's too awkward to be a diva, isn't he? Isn't Russell Wilson just too awkward to really be a real like, I feel like to be a diva, you got to be that Aaron Rodgers and comfortable in yourself to be able to, dress up silly for going into training camp and then wonder why people are acting silly around you. That's the Aaron Rodgers, the diva of like, no, if I do it, it's cool, but if you do it, it's not. That kind of thing, which James Harden does. With James Harden getting mad. James Harden and Kyrie both on the Nets, and James Harden getting mad because Kyrie was saging the Boston locker room when they go to Boston. It's a weird situation, but I appreciate it. So everybody text us in there, 512-337-3776. Ben Simmons tried diva. He did. But Ben Simmons didn't. I don't know if he even tried diva so much as he kind of feigned where he just wasn't. He goes, you guys, could you just stop being so mean? We went, no, it's Philadelphia. They're going to be mean. It's kind of what we do here in Philadelphia. If you missed the news earlier today, Zach Martin has reached a deal with the Dallas Cowboys. He is set to come back. He is already, I believe, back at camp. So this deal was kind of in the works. The people thought that this deal was probably getting close to happening because Jerry Jones didn't talk to the media after the first preseason game. So they thought maybe something was happening, but he didn't want to leak it yet. But basically, Zach Martin is going to get $4 million more each year, and the years will be fully guaranteed for the next 2 years. So it is a little bit more money. It is not the full $8 million, I think, a year that would have caught him back up to being close to the top tier guard's salary. So it's not fully what he wanted. He did probably pay about $1 million in fines. So you're only really getting 7. But you know what? Only 7 is silly. Only 7 is silly. OBJ on our divas list, yeah. OBJ's in that weird thing where I don't know if he's a diva as much as he is eccentric, because I don't know if he's like negative to the team. He seemed to be good on the Rams. He doesn't, I don't know, and he may be. I think he's right on that verge. I like that, though. I like that. We get from our man Jacob Standard. He's throwing in Kawhi Leonard as the diva. Kawhi Leonard is the background diva, isn't he? But Kawhi Leonard is that background diva of the one that you never know. I'd still say he Kaiser Soze'd the entire situation, where he kept saying it was his uncle, and he kept saying that it was going to be that he was like, the uncle doesn't like this, his uncle doesn't like anything, his uncle doesn't like the Spurs and all of that. And he maybe he'll stay in Toronto and all these things. He had a meeting with Drake while he was talking to the Clippers, telling him if they get Paul George, I'll sign with you. And he organized a trade where Paul George says he was going to stay in Oklahoma City. He does all of those things. And we don't know about it until the night where it goes, Kawhi Leonard's going to the Clippers, Paul George is going to the Clippers. We go, oh, man, we got Kaiser Soze by Kawhi Leonard. And he does the awkward Kawhi laughed out of that. Just terrible. OBA's dad is the diva. But Des Bryant, the question is, who's the biggest sports diva in sports today? I didn't want to go all time. It opens it up to some hatred of some old school people. But who is the biggest diva in sports today? We're going to put up the poll on social media. We got to get out early today because we got the Rangers coming up here at 6:30 pregame, starting their series against the Angels. Thank you so much for everybody who joined us on the text line today, played with us, 512-337-3776. We'll be back tomorrow doing it again. So don't go nowhere. Enjoy the Rangers tonight. Enjoy your night. Be safe out there. Take care of each other and take care of yourself. Keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn.